Hello, friends! So, what's the deal with this article saying female-driven Furiosa kills Mad Max? The same article says women didn't show up for this movie. Now, the statistics are the statistics, right? But I think it's a lot more than just woman-led film bad, man-led film good. That is goofy. There is so much more going on and so much going into why so many movies in general are underperforming at the box office. But we're not here to talk about that today. We're just going to talk about this movie. Hey there, movie lovers. Welcome back. It's your movie buddy here, ready to dive into the next movie on the shortening list of movies that I need to catch up on. Whether you're a longtime subscriber, follower, or a new face, I am thrilled to have you here. If you're looking for detailed plot breakdowns, you won't find them here. But stick around for my spoiler-free thoughts and honest opinions, usually on the latest releases, but right now I'm just trying to get back on track. And if you're here with me on YouTube, you can find timestamps in the video description to jump straight to the sections that you're most interested in. New reviews drop every Friday, so hit that subscribe button on YouTube and follow on Spotify to stay updated. Got a movie that you want me to talk about? Drop a comment on YouTube, send me a DM on Instagram, or let me know on the podcast. And yes, my Instagram will be updated eventually. So grab your popcorn, hit that subscribe button, hit that follow button, and let's jump into today's episode on Furiosa, a Mad Max saga. Snatched from the green place of many mothers, young Furiosa falls into the hands of a great biker horde led by the warlord Dementis. Sweeping through the wasteland, they come across the Citadel, presided over by the Immortan Joe. As the two tyrants fight for dominance, Furiosa soon finds herself in a non-stop battle to make her way home. As always, I want to dive into the themes of the film, or at least my take on them. Furiosa, a Mad Max saga has a lot going on. Feminism, women empowerment and liberation, environmentalism, or the lack of, war, humanity's struggle for survival, and what happens when everything falls apart, when humanity loses everything. It's hate versus hope, and it's paradise lost and the relentless search for it. I'm going to assume throughout the rest of the video that we have all seen 2015's Mad Max Fury Road. And I have to say that I appreciate the consistent theme of Furiosa's story. Every slice of peace Furiosa has ever had is gone. And Furiosa, a Mad Max saga strengthens this narrative, especially through the search for that lost paradise. Anya Taylor-Joy is Furiosa, and she effortlessly captures the loss, but even more kinetically, the search for paradise through vengeance. How hope, or hate, drives you to push beyond. So before the determination, before the fury, our girl started somewhere, and we get to see that setup in the beginning. The movie spends a lot of time here, and I actually really enjoyed seeing a young Furiosa. Seeing a young Furiosa, where she started and what she went through, really adds depth to her character and strengthens her character. Alia Brown does a fantastic job of guiding us through the trauma and loss, showing how these impactful moments molded her emotions and feelings into resilience. Then Anya Taylor-Joy brings it home with that vengeance and a plan. She becomes a powerful warrior who has continued to push forward despite her past and circumstance. Fans of the previous installment, Mad Max Fury Road, will know what to expect when it comes to the look of this film, and for everyone else, you are in for a treat. The cinematography, framing, action, and overall visuals in Furiosa, a Mad Max saga are breathtaking. The movie looks and feels original with unique and expansive sets that really immerse you into this world. The chase sequences stand out for their impressive action, CGI aside, which we will talk about later. The stunt work is incredible. What they were able to achieve, especially in the variety of stunts and action, while also building upon what we've already seen in Fury Road, while also bringing new elements to the screen, is impressive. I got off topic a smidgen, but I have to mention the color palette of these movies. The high saturation, the vivid oranges, the bright brights, and the bleak darks all contribute to a visually striking experience. Touching back on the framing, some shots were wildly impactful to the story or just honestly looked really cool and badass. As impressive as Furiosa, a Mad Max saga looks, you know we have to talk about a couple of the standout performances. The entire cast does a fantastic job. No one's acting was so bad that it took me out of the film. In fact, every cast member really elevated the believability of this world, immersing you in every scene. Chris Hemsworth as Dementis is absolutely scene-stealing. He takes over the screen with his personality and his red-dyed parachute cape. Dementis does some truly awful and horrific things, but Hemsworth manages to make him a charming and intriguing character that really balances out Furiosa, especially with how talkative he is. I saw a few comments online where people said that Hemsworth brought a lot to the character that offers more than what's on paper, and I definitely agree. Another comment I found compared him to Jack Sparrow from the Pirates of the Caribbean franchise, in that the actor is bringing so much more to the character, really transforming Dementis from a character on paper to a large on-screen personality. Hemsworth balances that character magnetism with an imposing presence, making Dementis interesting for a more stoic Furiosa to go up against. Speaking of Furiosa, Anya Taylor-Joy is incredible. For bringing a character to life that doesn't have a lot of dialogue, she is fascinating to watch. We see her go from a lively and daring kid to a stoic child who's lost everything. Shout out to Alia Brown, who does a fantastic job, especially with the nonverbal acting. And then she becomes a ruthless warrior. Anya Taylor-Joy is such a good actress, and Furiosa is a much different character than what I've seen from her before, and she absolutely knocked it out of the park. Her intensity is so clearly communicated through her eyes, movements, and from time to time, her voice, that tone, chef's kiss. I love the nuance she brings to the role, and it's really highlighted even more by Furiosa's limited dialogue. Moving on from the acting, let's talk about the story for a second. There are moments where the pacing does feel a little bit slow, but the movie itself is, again, visually interesting, which helps to keep your attention. And the story is also engaging despite those slower moments. From a story standpoint, I think it's easy to be skeptical about a prequel, especially since we already know what happens to Furiosa and how her search ends. However, I think the story in this film is unique, especially in execution, and it's a great addition to the franchise. It adds depth to Furiosa's character while also enriching the overall narrative of the Mad Max franchise. The comparison section this time around is going to start leaning into my personal thoughts and opinions, so I'm going to keep it short. I think Furiosa: A Mad Max Saga was marketed as a full-throttle action movie, much like the Full Metal high-octane craziness of Mad Max Fury Road. It was definitely that, don't get me wrong. Furiosa delivers. However, it was much more of a deep dive into the making of this character that we're so familiar with. It's not a 2+ hour long car chase, which is totally fine, but it also isn't as consistently high intensity as I was expecting. Instead, it's a blend of brutal action, white knuckle passion mixed with funny moments, jaw-dropping scenes, and thrilling car chases. This mix makes it a unique and engaging experience. Now, let's wrap up with my final thoughts on the movie. I kind of gave you a little bit of my final thoughts there, but the real question remains, is it worth your time? I know a second ago I mentioned it was marketed more as an action flick, so I have to admit I was disappointed when I left the theater. I was expecting more action, more crazy, more similar tone and pace to Mad Max Fury Road. That was definitely a mistake on my part. However, after rewatching the movie at home and looking at it as its own story without comparing it to Fury Road and without setting a bar for my expectations, I realized that this movie is actually fantastic. It's a fun and thrilling entry into the franchise that is loud, entertaining, brutal, gritty, and violent, and it doesn't let up even in those quiet moments. It's very much tied to Furiosa's experience throughout her story. So while it missed the mark for me initially, when I watched it a second time, I was really able to appreciate the movie, and I can say it's definitely worth watching. The movie is 2 hours and 28 minutes long, and it felt like a long movie when I watched it in the theater. If you guys have been here for a while with me talking about movies, then you know I don't mind a long movie. However, because I was expecting a different vibe, really, again, more action, more crazy, especially after having just watched Mad Max Fury Road at home before going to the theater, and again, the marketing. It just felt like it was so much longer than it actually was. Additionally, there is a lot of CGI in this movie. I do think it does look kind of wonky, kind of weird at some points, but overall the CGI does look good. Could they have gone the practical route for some of these elements? Of course, but the practical elements they did include are impressive. Just don't go into this movie expecting the same ratio of practical effects to CGI as Fury Road. Of course, every movie has its pros and cons, and naturally, people's preferences vary. I've been sharing my thoughts, and I'm sure you know where I stand on this movie by now, but I'm still going to talk about some criticisms of the movie and share my thoughts. I am not going to go into the sheer amount of negative reviews I saw simply because women. Because women-led movie, and because movie woke. Breaking news! Woke is not a bad thing, and neither are women. Instead, I want to focus on a few comments that I saw that have a little bit more substance. A lot of people compared this one to Fury Road, and I really can't say anything because I was one of those people too. That aside, people said the pacing was horrible. The characters were forgettable. There was no character development, and it was boring. Oof, that's rough. I think when you're comparing it to the previous installment, you really can say all of this and more. The pacing does have some slower moments, I can definitely agree with that, but forgettable characters? We got really in-depth with Furiosa, and we got a crazed and wild Dementis. Both are really strong characters that really leave an impression after the credits roll, in my opinion. This same person also said that the plot is garbage. Valid opinion. I think the overarching plot is the same, find the green place, but really it's about Furiosa getting back everything that was taken from her. I think it's a compelling story. One issue that I have, which is arguably a non-issue, is the inclusion of footage from Fury Road at the end of this movie. It felt weird, it felt out of place, and maybe it felt a little bit heavy-handed, especially since I had just rewatched Fury Road before going to the theater. But maybe it's a nice refresher to just tie things together? I also think I just don't like a bunch of footage from previous films in a movie, but that's just a preference. Now, I do want to talk about potential triggers for this movie. There's violence, lots of violence, fetuses, feti, SA is mentioned, discussed and implied, maggots, up close, in an open wound, maggots. This is just what I was able to pick out, so please check for any additional triggers and make sure you're in a good headspace before watching. Have you had the chance to watch Furiosa yet? If not, what is holding you back? Is it not your cup of tea, not your usual genre? I'm really curious to hear your thoughts after today's episode. And if you've already watched it, I want to know your take. Did you love it? Did you hate it? Or did you fall somewhere in between? Share your thoughts, opinions, and reactions. I am all ears. Furiosa, a Mad Max saga, is not Mad Max Fury Road. And it's not trying to be. I think those perceived shortcomings, like I said, I had them too, are more than made up for with its visuals, story, and incredible acting. At 2.5 hours, it definitely feels like it's runtime, and maybe even longer at some points. I agree with a comment that I saw online that this movie isn't the revelation that Fury Road was when it was released, and honestly, it still is. I do think it's possible for something familiar to have the ability to strike twice like that, but this isn't one of those cases. While it shares similarities with Fury Road, it clearly does its own thing. Fury Road escalated everything: action, craziness, practical effects, but Furiosa takes a step up in terms of character depth. I think if you can suspend your disbelief, get past knowing the future of the character, and overlook some of the CGI, then this movie is definitely worth watching. It's a fantastic film, and you don't need to have seen the previous installment to enjoy it. However, if you haven't seen Fury Road and you plan on watching Furiosa, I would recommend skipping the ending where they add all that extra footage from Fury Road. Before we wrap up, I want to talk about the movies that I'll be sharing my thoughts on next. I'm still chipping at the movie block I got stuck behind, and it's finally the moment I have all been waiting for. Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. If you guys have been keeping up with me every week, then you know I've been reminding you guys nonstop that I put in all the work for Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. I watched all 9 movies. I recently read my notes back too, because I take notes when I'm watching these movies, and I was really into it, you guys. Now, did I need to watch the entire franchise? 9 movies, including the 2001 Tim Burton experience? No, I did not. Actually, yes, I did. Seeing the entire franchise has altered my DNA, and I am a different person now. What I'm trying to say is I'm really looking forward to that episode. After that, we're going to talk about Bad Boys Ride or Die and Maxine. And if you guys caught the last episode that I posted, then you know I finally watched X and Pearl. That was interesting. Once I'm all caught up, I've got a list of podcast exclusive episodes that I'm going to start working on. As for upcoming theater releases, I finally got tickets for Longlegs. Y'all, I was stressing because my local theater didn't have any showtimes, but I think they added some. It comes up kind of weird on Cinemark's website, but I bought tickets and we'll see what happens. The only other movie I have tickets secured for is Deadpool and Wolverine, and I am beyond excited for that movie. If there's a movie that you're excited about and you want me to talk about, let me know in the comments below or send me a message on Instagram at a.rocket.review. Your suggestions are always welcome, and I love hearing from you guys. But for now, a huge thank you to everyone who has stuck around with me to the end of the video. Last time we talked, I shared my thoughts on The Strangers Chapter 1. It's been a whole week, I know, but I didn't want to fall behind anymore, so I posted a poll to the community tab on YouTube, and you guys voted for A Quiet Place Day 1. If you haven't checked out one or both of those episodes yet, they are just a click away. If you're watching today's episode on YouTube, you can find links to both in the top right corner of today's video. And for my podcast listeners, both episodes are available for you as well. Your feedback is always appreciated, so please share your thoughts on YouTube in the comments below. And if you're listening on the Spotify app, swipe up and let me know what you're thinking. Do you agree with my take? Do you have a different opinion? Do you think Furiosa: A Mad Max Saga was as good, not as good, or better than 2015's Mad Max Fury Road? Let's get the conversation going. If you're enjoying the content, don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and ring that notification bell so you never miss an update. For those who prefer on-the-go listening, maybe while you're getting ready, while you're at work, follow me on Spotify so you don't miss out on our podcast exclusive episodes, which are on their way. And hey, if you're on Instagram, follow me at a.rocket.review for sneak peeks and behind the scenes content. And honestly, it's really just me going to the theater and watching movies at home. Feel free to hop into my DMs with movie suggestions or just to chat about films. Your support honestly means so much to me, and your engagement helps our community grow. Whether it's on YouTube, the podcast, or on Instagram, your presence is greatly appreciated. So until next time, spread positivity, be safe, take care of yourself, and happy movie watching. I'll talk to you guys soon. Bye.